Lexirosa.poet here. Welcome to the Relationship Reflections podcast. Today I have a very special guest, a friend of mine, a salsa dancer, a friend, a man of wisdom. Give a warm welcome to my friend, Deon.
How's it going?
Hello. Hi, Deon Howard, your government name.
My government name.
Now everybody knows it. Okay, Deon is here because you had done a super vulnerable, awesome Facebook post.
Yes.
That I was shocked, created a thread of conversation.
Yes. And you came here to call me out on it, to expose me, to get retribution for all women, to get me. This is came out here to put me on blast for my post, my social media post. That's
Not at all.
That's what we're here for,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
Okay.
Never, darling. Never at all, darling. No, I actually loved it because I think so. We'll give context. We're going to walk through reading the post, and then we're going to use the post to facilitate deeper conversation to talk about it. We'll even put the post graphic in the video so you could see it as we're reading it and talking about it. But the topic is commitment. And you were talking about the double, the double, what is it called?
Double standard.
Double standard.
Right,
Yes, the double standard. Like women, we act like we're the prize, and men, you're asked to commit right off the bat. But you've noticed kind of a flip where women are lacking commitment. You want to know something? The reason why this is super interesting, and you'll learn as we talk. I used to be 100% committer, and now I think I date more like a dude. I really do.
Okay.
But I'm getting better though. No. There was a season in my life where I probably dated more like a dude. And now now I'm more intentional for sure. But I think I relate to multiple sides of the spectrum. I've been the girl that's like, you need to commit. And I've also been the girl that's like, I'm talking to a lot of people. So your post actually, I think, was just fascinating. I'm excited to talk about men and commitment.
Yes.
So how you feeling?
Feeling good. Honestly, I've just been like on a relationship kick. I feel like honestly, like the reason why I like this topic is like, for me, I almost feel like it's like my purpose to be married. You know, like I want to be married. I want to be a good man to my wife. And the prerequisite to that is, really good dating principles. I feel like
And the women fall in love on the other side of the spectrum on the camera.
I mean,
That's really why you're on the show.
well, I mean, like, how good does that work out for me? I think so, so I'm single, been single for a while, but I feel like the best advantage is it's given me time to like, really learn myself and really understand the game, like really understand, different parts of it. So, rather than being like something like, oh my gosh, I'm single, but it's perfect because it's like, this is time for me to learn and grow. And then like when I do get in that position, when I have the right person for me, we'll be in a really good position to be really strong long term. So that's just my main goal.
Wow. And the chat just grew. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's get right into your post. You're talking about you've been watching a lot of videos, so I'm going to kind of skip the first section. And you were noticing there's this idea that women want men to stop being inconsistent with their interests in them and instead pursue them completely. For me, I've wondered why I've had trouble being able to desire, let alone pursue someone completely. But I feel like I finally understand myself better. Next, you did a disclaimer. Disclaimer, I use the word commit in relation to the phase in dating where you are talking to someone and you're devoting exclusive interest with that person with the intention of dating them, not in regards to about fidelity in a committed relationship. So please keep that in mind. So do you want to give a little more context to that?
Yes. Basically, I mean, I do think there is a point, like after you really get to know somebody, or even if you're in a long-term relationship with them, commitment, like you should be committed and devoted to that person. And seeing that relationship to the end. To the end doesn't necessarily mean like, you should get married, but just in the sense of like, you should come to a resolution, but like, I'm talking about like this,
like committing to pursuing 100%.
The pre-dating phase, like you're just talking, just getting to know somebody, that kind of thing. And I feel like, there's this dance that we have to play, like as men, we have to be the pursuers, right? And, I feel like traditionally, that makes sense and that works. But then also we live in this time where, we have a lot more options available. We have a lot of distraction with different interests. There's a lot of multiple people look, attractive.
I think that's the biggest challenge right now with dating, by the way.
Exactly. And then I even talk about it in my post too, but we also live in a flirty culture where it's just cool to be talking and flirting and like, putting our energy out there with multiple people. Right. So it's like, it's just hard from a cultural standpoint to even want to get to that level where it's like, okay, like I'm only gonna be talking to like just this one person.
Yeah, commitment is super interesting because, I don't even know if I should even comment now, if I should just keep going through the post, because I feel like I've done the talking to a lot of people before where I'm not committed and I'm like enjoying the game. But the truth is then I realize you really lack knowing somebody.
Right.
And you're playing this almost build a bear, build a man like idea, and it creates a really unhealthy, unrealistic expectation.
Right.
And I wonder for men, like if Instagram and all these dating apps, like same thing, is that creating, that game is unhealthy, I think.
Well, see, and I talk about it there, but it's like, I don't think it created that situation. Right? I feel like, if you talk to your parents, if you talk to my parents, references from movies and things like that, game was already being played, back then. Right? We just have more access and like more new channels where we can play the game.
I feel a little mind blown.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like, I listen to stories about my dad and like, their friends and things like that. And, they were jocks, right? So they had absolutely no problem, getting any girl that they wanted to, right?
So you just think right now it made it more what?
It makes it
easier?
Yeah, it makes it easier. It exacerbates the problem because it's like, well, now I can be a player in real life, but now I also have this other access channel where I can run my game. I have Facebook, I have Facebook Messenger, I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I've got TikTok, I can sneak in their DMs there, right?
Yo, I got someone stuck in my DMs today.
So it's like, we have these channels. And before that, because like, even with like cell phones, that was also a thing before social media, because now like, we had Messenger. So that's like, we have the Messenger, but then we have all these things that just multiply, what you can do. You can send that, hey, you up text to like all these channels.
Yeah. And some people are lazy. They're sending the same message to everybody. No, I really have seen that, like copied and pasted. But so disclaimer, it's hard. So you're talking about the word commit. Like I'm to move from phase of talking. Like I'm like, you're interesting. And that's what I love. So you talked about, I might find someone interested and I'm somewhat interested, but I don't see enough in someone to be committed.
Right.
So explain that. So for us girls out there that are like, oh my goodness, like he was so cute. We were dancing, we were talking, we had a great conversation. I think he might like me, or he asked me for my number. That's not him being like, you're the only chica I'm pursuing.
Yeah, because like, I think a part of that too is like, I feel like maybe I've reached a stage in my life or just this realization that maybe it could just be just something that young people do, but I feel like on the whole, like we're very inconsistent, right? We're very flaky. Right,
Culture.
And it's as a guy to pursue a girl, right? There's this lack of reciprocation of energy, right? I can get someone's number, I can text, I can message, I can do the things, but I feel like there's this sense that like a woman wants a guy to like sit there and like entertain them or something, and like has to do the most.
You're hitting on something.
Yeah, okay. So I actually just recently, quick backstory for something else, but I recently joined, like just started doing like dating apps, like the real thing was like I wanted to get over somebody, right? So I was like, okay, let me jump on this thing, let me get into the dating apps. Let me kind of see like what this thing
See what's out there
is about, just to see. Because honestly, I was like, I really don't think this will like work for me. This is kind of like, I wasn't expecting too much.
Okay.
And honestly, I was right because there's not that much. So I knew better before, but I was just proved right. But anyway,
I still have not downloaded or been on any dating apps.
Good. There's no.
I think about doing it as an episode for the podcast for fun.
Yeah. just to try and see. Okay, so
But then I'm playing with people's hearts, and I don't like that.
okay, so there's guys and girls get two different experiences, right? Because I feel like girls, they're used to getting like a lot of messages, and they have to pick and choose. Whereas, you know, on these things now, it's as a guy, you have to like really like work to get someone's attention, right? And on these experiences, you know, this could happen whether it's a real life interaction or it's something on there, right? Like in a real life interaction, you could meet somebody, you know, you could have a good time, you could, you know, give them their number. And then on one hand, it might be, like I said, you might be messaging me and things like that. And, you know, they're just responding with one word comments, haha, oh yeah, cool. Huh. Okay, what are we doing? Like, why do I have to do all these things? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do I have to do to like get some type of like engagement out of you, right? Or you could just have something to where it's just hard for you to, you know, even meet up with them. Mm-hmm. You know, like there was somebody that I met at the gym once, and you know, we met, we had a good time, and like we exchanged information and stuff. So I could tell like there was like a vibe there, right? And you know, she was saying like, oh yeah, you know, I go to the gym every day, blah blah blah. It's like, all right, cool. So I just so happened to go.
The same time she was there.
Not the same time. No. So she invites me, you know, back to the gym or whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. So, you know, I tell her like, hey, I'm gonna be there, and she's like, yeah, you know, I'll be there. I go to the gym. She's nowhere to be found. I get my whole workout in, XYZ 1, 2, 3. So I do my thing. I get mine. You know what I mean? Like I you know. So it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. But you know, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, she walks in, she's like, oh yeah, you know, I was going to be here like at this time, but then this happened. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, that's fine. But it's like, if I had sat there and depended my whole, or bet my whole like day or like my whole experience there.
Your expectation.
My expectation, like waiting for this person like to be there at the same time. So like, you know, we could, you know, whatever. Then I'd be really disappointed because like, well, you said you were going to be here and do this at this time.
Yeah, that's what you mean by the flakiness.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like that can happen just like with multiple interactions. I could, you know, ask someone like, hey, like, you know, let's go to the movies, let's go out and do this and that. And then at first, like with the initial interaction, there's all this excitement.
And then
but then like, yeah.
The commitment. But
yeah,
that's what we're talking
exactly.
about.
So then it's like, exactly. And then it's like, oh, like.
But why do you think that is? Do you think it's because people are like weighing their... I don't know. Are they testing the waters? Are they weighing it? Like,
I just feel like I think people just lack intention. I think people want things to be like really convenient for them. Like it's nice when you meet somebody at a place because like you're already there, right? But then like when you actually have to put in effort and energy and like actually have to make consideration, now all of a sudden, you know, where you at?
That's a quote. That's a quote. It's true though.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so like, I mean, for like I said, for that commitment, like I have to like really know, like, okay, like, is this person worth my time? You know, would I be, just basically that, is this person like worth my time?
Yeah.
And so, okay, so, and I feel like my attitudes have kind of evolved from this stance that I've just pretty much learned over time. It's the, basically the concept of like infatuation versus, you know, like true love or like true understanding. And I feel like, especially like when we're young, but I feel like everyone goes through it. You know, we have this honeymoon phase. You know, we just find someone like, oh my gosh, she's so fine. Like, shoot, I gotta get to know her, right? You know, it happens for girls who are like, oh my gosh, she's so cute.
So cute. We're texting, we're calling.
Exactly. And, you know, you almost look past other qualities, or sometimes we get
so infatuated with the idea of somebody or the first things we're seeing, but we're not getting to who they are. And that only comes with consistency and time.
It does. And see, one of the problems with that is sometimes you can go so hard for somebody only to find out that there's certain qualities or things about them that you actually really wouldn't have like gotten with or been involved with, but you didn't really take the time to get to know them. And so now, like, you know, you realize, oh, I'm with this person like I don't even care about, right? But all you saw was like the pretty face or just like those really superficial things.
Wow.
And that's like for me, like why I choose to take relationships more slow, you know what I mean? Like I know that there's people out there who are like, hey, I got a girlfriend. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what do you know about her? Like, and it's like, well, I don't know. She's just my girlfriend. It's like, what do you mean? Like, how do you get to, like, why is it that we get into relationships and like call someone like their boyfriend or their girlfriend, right? And, you really don't know them. You really don't know if like you guys like really match up. Like for one of the things growing up, I had an example with my father, and one of his proponents was like, oh, date as many people as you can, like really get to know. It's fun, it's a great experience. Don't like, tie yourself down. Like, you're young, you should just be having fun. And I do totally understand that notion. One of the things that I saw growing up was, he would date these women, he'd get involved, and at the very start, like, it'd be cool, like, you'd see them around and stuff like that. And then, he wasn't at a place in his life where he was like interested in like really like being with someone long term. So he was just kind of like in this like dating thing, right? And so then after a while, he would just decide like, I don't want to get involved with you like that. And then, as a kid, like you ask, okay, like why isn't this person like around? And then it always just be kind of like some excuses like, yeah, like, she's nice, but I didn't know like she was like that. And it's like, well, if you'd actually spent time, like really get to know them first, before you decide to like have them spend so much time with you, like your kids and your family, and put them in the situation where like, it looks like,
well, they're playing wife, but
right. Or it looks like, things are happening and it turns out they're not. And it's like, well, why even go through that? You know what I mean? So for me, it was just kind of this example of like, I don't want to put myself or anyone else in that situation. I don't want to sit here.
So that experience really shaped you.
Exactly.
You saw something that you were like, I want to do different. And that's why even your mindset is like, I want to find the right person to commit to.
Right.
And I think what I'm hearing, and this is kind of this inverse relationship where we're like, I'm going to commit to you and make you my partner. But do you think people just don't understand what commitment really is? Because or people define commitment differently. Like commitment is, I want to be with you long term. I'm going to work through this no matter what.
Well, and I think that is kind of, it's kind of a result of a lot of different things. Like, you're a Christian. There's kind of this like divide between, God's standards and, like the world standards, right?
Let's go there.
So I almost put it like it's two like halves like an approach. And from a Christian standpoint, your half is like you're dating with the goal to marry. So that process is going to be, I'm going to meet somebody, I'm going to get to know you. And if we're like compatible, like with all of our goals and things like that, we're getting married. So there's like a purpose aligned with that. From like this worldly standpoint, well, with that being said, like there's a purpose, a long-term purpose for that. From a worldly standpoint, like you can have that. But then there's also this aspect of kind of being just like too in the moment, just not really having a purpose, just like knowing like, oh, I like this person right now. I just like this person today. But not really having like this goal of like, okay, but we're doing these things to lead to something. It's just kind of the sense of we're doing this thing because it feels good right now. We're doing this thing because it feels good right now. And there's not this like broader sense of like, okay, well, where is this leading to?
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting, right? Because even this podcast, or in general, I was working through a breakup that was with the intention to marry,
right?
But I almost feel like my dating standards or ideas have changed in a sense of I viewed commitment as no matter what, but with therapy and conversations, like, but you still have to have your non-negotiables and your standards and all that. And so, but it's interesting because I think like, there is this balance though. Yeah, I never want to throw away the way God built things. That's not how it is. But I think there is this challenge with the way we live today where I may choose that. But how do you find a partner who has a similar intentional motive? Or this is what's hard, right? I ended up dating somebody after that breakup. strong Christian man, great man of God. That was the conversation. That was the goal. We were dating. And then it was like, I feel it was our first big obstacle. And it was like, are we taking a break? Are we dating? Are we breaking up? And it was like, this is our first obstacle. Like, and then we broke up from a first obstacle standpoint. Because it was like, well, do you see a future with me or not? And it was like that. And this is where I do see some value in, like, we have to live in the moment. You actually don't know.
Right.
We need time to get to know one another.
Right.
And so there is this, like, but I do think we've gotten too far in the spectrum. We're living in the moment for a DM, for a night, right? These apps, like, yeah.
And I feel like, honestly, like, there's a balance here, right? Because I remember, like, on that podcast episode, like you said, like you were dating with the intention to marry, and, you know, from a Christian world, like, there's a lot of that conversation. And I feel that, from a certain sense, it almost takes like the fun out of it, in the sense, because like your attraction is just like, okay, like marriage, right? Whereas, like, I feel like it's still a process, right? It's still like very much like, okay, like, you know, do we like each other? Do we get to know each other? And it's like this bigger picture. Like, as long as you have the purpose, then it's easier to enjoy all those things, versus just like every interaction like has to be like,
every interaction's checking a box. Like, you don't want it to be like that. I've been that girl.
Yeah.
That's true. Like, there is a process and enjoying. Do I like the person?
Right.
That's where I'm going, for sure. So you feel like there's a double standard between, like, women, we feel like we're the catch and the prize, and men have to commit. But you guys are the catch and the prize too. Do you not feel that in culture, that, like?
So there is this also sense, right, that a man isn't like a man is only appreciated for like what he brings to the table, whereas women just kind of like automatically have value, right? Like, there's you know, like in my post where I talk about you know, when I talk about that idea that, you know, men have to, excuse me, miss, I saw you from across the room. Hey, you know, even just that, like, oh, he just saw her and he felt so compelled that now he has to sing and dance to like get to it, right? What woman is singing and dancing to like go across the room to get some man? Like, I guess it happens, but it's like, it's a sense of like,
I don't know, I would walk right across that room. He cute.
Hey. But it's this sense that like you're already so valuable. I don't have to like know all that much about you. I just have to know that you're beautiful and I want to make you mine. Like, you already just have automatic value.
That's an interesting standard though too. I feel like women are viewed as objects. You're so beautiful. I want to be with you, but I don't know you. That's actually really hard. So like, a deep desire of mine is like, I want someone to know me.
Right.
Not just say, I like that, not be arm candy. But isn't that interesting? And then for you gentlemen, the standard is, what are you an asset to the team, or are you a liability?
Right.
But is there a balance to have both for both parties?
Yes. And I do feel that, I mean, ultimately, okay, so I have been one dating source that I've just been listening to. Not that I subscribe to everything, right? I've been taking a listen to Kevin Samuel's relationship podcast and things like that, just out of curiosity, because he's like such a controversial figure. And I was just curious, like, okay, what is he talking about that's like getting people like, so like, what makes him so polarizing, right? And what he's kind of known for is like talking to these women who might have like these very kind of like warped standards for like what they want out of it, like what they want out of a relationship. They typically,
a warped view of what
in the sense that like what I'm finding with these women is these are women who only typically want like high value men for like their resources, what these men can do for them. Like, oh, I need like
a sugar daddy.
Exactly. You know, like, oh, I need this rich man so I can get this standard and I don't have to do anything for it. I just want somebody who can do that for me. Right. And so, but one of the things that he does as far as like judging these criteria for these women is like, oh, like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, you know, how do you look? How much money do you make? Like, did you have like an education? So it's like, in a lot of ways, he's kind of like putting a lot of like superficial qualities to like grade somebody, and without necessarily taking into regard to like, okay, well, who are you as a person? Like, what are your values, your character? You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, okay, it's nice to be this high value man with a lot of money and a great body and you dress nice, and to be with a high value woman and, you know, with a lot of, you know, a lot of money, great education, looks nice. But it's like, okay, but, you know, do you actually get along? Like, are you actually like, do you like each other? Are you actually have like good values that you're, you know, working towards? You know, are you guys yelling at each other at home? And, you know, is he beating you? But it's just like, he doesn't talk about that stuff. And I do feel that there is kind of this balance where, like, you know, it'd be really nice from a human standpoint to be like this Instagram perfect couple, right?
There is a weird pressure of that.
But it's not really, that's not really necessary to have like a great relationship.
True. The way you look and how many photos or how fun you have is not an indicator of emotional intimacy. So like a high value for me is like emotional compatibility and emotional intimacy. And there's a difference because I think in our culture right now, we're looking for physical, like people are looking for physical intimacy. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, like, I don't even want to go there if I can't even speak to you. Like, but a part of creating a culture of emotional intimacy is so many things. Someone has to feel safe. Somebody has to feel seen. Somebody has to feel a sense of belonging. Somebody has to feel known. And it's actually interesting, a certain level of commitment. Because if you're talking to a lot of people, and this is what I think is interesting. If you're talking to a lot of people, it's really hard to create an emotionally intimate relationship. Because you can't get to the deep with a lot of people. It's exhausting.
It is. And
I have a high capacity and I've tried it. It's exhausting. You can't. Or you start to feel conviction and...
Well, do you feel like this whole picking and choosing thing, do you feel like you have to pick like the best parts of all these different people?
If you're balancing people, I think that's a natural thing to do. Okay. And I also think we have a tendency to self-protect. So then you also start creating this comparison game. Yeah. And so I actually am probably somebody who I'm committed to this one person. I'm going to like only talk to them for a little bit. But then the minute something gets south, I'm like. Yeah. Like,
well, this guy can do this for me, so.
But there's no perfect person.
Right. And see, honestly, I feel like that's what we have to, you know, kind of get to. And so this is why, okay, like, coming back to like my realization for like how I you know, came to this for myself. Just like you said, like people can be flaky, like we have a lot of different options like that. I feel like it's best to, like for me, like I need to find somebody interesting. I need to find something worth committing to, something like below the surface, right? If I find something below the surface that's special, that's unique, you know, that like really draws me to you, now it's like, okay, like I have a reason to separate you from these other things. And there is also you do also have to have a mature sense of, you know, obligation. I remember something I read a while ago. It was like a reflection post that somebody had made on Facebook, but essentially the sum of it was like, you know, if you can't deal with me at my worst, like you don't deserve my best. Like everybody has a dark side, right? Like everybody has things that they're going through. And wow. Yeah. That's deep. Yeah. So if somebody is like compelling enough to like really get to know, and that's why, like I said, I feel like it's best like in our time to like really take our time to like really get to know, because you really want to understand, okay, what is this person going through? What is their dark side? Is this something that, you know, is like defining their whole personality, or is it something that, you know, is an aspect that like, you know, I feel like, you know, we can work through, and I can see that this person is more valuable than just this side, you know, because we all have it, you know what I mean? So you want to commit to somebody who like, you know, their great qualities outshine those things, and you want to like, you know, go through that with that person.
And go through the hard time with that person too.
Not like obviously, and that has different levels, right? Because like if this person, they're going through hard times but they're abusive and things like that, like no, there's no reason you need to disrespect yourself or put yourself in harm's way to like be with this person, right? Like no, like that's
I have conversations with women like that though.
Yeah, and
that's what's hard. I think dating is not so. I think whenever you're dealing with emotional things, matters of the heart don't always match wisdom. And that's why, there's all these quotes that I think are super incorrect. I talked about this in the last episode with Marley, where I'm like, yo, follow your heart. No, your heart is deceptive. But I think what we're getting at is like, that's the thing. Like when you love somebody, you can love them, but there has to be some wisdom. And I think that's some logic. And that's why I think wise counselor people in your life are these conversations, just being able to be real with someone like, hey, sitting down and being like, hey, I really love this person. This is everything I see. But let's talk about this dark side. Am I compromising too much? Am I giving up too much?
Right.
But I think that's a really good point because but choosing commitment is not choosing to be flaky.
Right. It's not choosing to be flaky. It's not choosing to be, you have to get to that point. Like you have to earn that point, right? You can't just, that's why, there are going to be people, right? Like just because, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. There are people who are going to absolutely go hard just because they see you and like, that's all they see, right? But like to really get to know you and like to understand you, to like really go hard and be like, okay, like I know Alexis, I know she does like all these great things. I know she does this and that, but like, I really know her. I really know like what she's going through. And I really want to like be there for her, not just because, I just want to be like her man, but I'm like, okay, like I really want to like work with this like through her.
Be her, yeah.
Exactly. So
that really speaks to a part of my heart that I think I long for. Because I think what has been hard about this dating process is you don't want to view men in such a negative way where you're like, dude, every time things get hard, you just bail. So you start to like lose faith in guys. Like you're like,
yeah, no, I feel that.
I have friends that are like, dude, I don't understand how like so many people want to pursue you. And I'm like, but it's annoying. It's annoying if it feels like a counterfeit. It's like, hey, here's a fake $100 bill and you're going to think about all the things you can buy with it. But when things get hard, when it's time to cash out at the register, it doesn't even cash out.
Yeah. Wow.
So you're like, yo, I wasted time even thinking of shopping. And that's, I hate to say this, I feel like that's how I feel about dating at this moment, which is why this podcast is it's helpful for my soul too, because it feeds hope. And even your post, I was like, yo, he's bringing a perspective that is so fascinating. And I'm so grateful to hear it. And I think we all need to have conversations because everybody's navigating through dating in a different way.
Yeah.
And there's other people that can't even get a DM. So some of my friends are like, at least you're getting pursued. And it's like, let's just all have empathy for each other. It's hard, right? Men, you guys have to do all this chasing. That's not fair. So it's like dating is just not as maybe clean cut or fun.
It's not. It's very dynamic.
It is work.
It's definitely work. But I do feel you on that point of like, just like starting to lose faith in men. I do feel like in some aspects, like I'm starting to like lose patience and things. And I'm like, that's not good. Cause like, I feel like, okay, so here's my thing, right? Like, I feel like you also have to come from a sense of understanding that fundamentally that no one's perfect, right? Like
that's something I have to believe about myself too, that I can't be perfect because I'm really bad at giving grace to myself and other people. So that's good. Fundamentally, no one's perfect. And fundamentally, you're not perfect.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so, having this, so it's two things. It's like having this like understanding of like grace and love when it comes to people, but then also having, I want to say like balanced standards, just like you said, like having balanced standards, having balanced boundaries of knowing, just like you said, like one thing for you is like, I want to know if things get hard that, this person is going to be there, not just bail just because like things get hard. You know what I mean? So it's like, what criteria before you decide like, okay, this person is worth all of my attention, before you decide that, what are some things that you just kind of like have to know about them before you're at that point where I'm like, okay, let's go, so it's like, that's what I feel like might be missing in the sense of like, this superficial way of just like going after someone just because they look good or something.
They look good.
Yeah.
So like right now,
you know what I mean?
she was cute and I felt good.
Yeah. You know.
What are your standards for commitment? What are the things that move from, like I love in your post, from you're interesting to I want to commit in getting to know you exclusively?
Yeah. Just like you said, so we have this like culture of like flakiness and things like that, but there's this expectation that men are supposed to just kind of deal with it and like still kind of press on and go hard. Right. And so, but I also talk about like things that basically a woman, you know, also, you know, should bring to the table in this like pursuit, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, like, you know, are you also canceling like your other options, like when you have someone like that's interested in you? Are you, you know, what value do you have other than you know, being pretty, right? Other than you just having this body? Because a lot of obsession with like the woman body, just like you said, like a lot of women are objectified. And, you know, there's almost a sense to take advantage of that. Like, oh, like you use like your body as leverage to get something, right? Oh, okay. But then there has to be some substance after that. And, you know, I feel like that's why a lot of things don't work or fail or things like that. Cause like you don't have anything to offer. This can go for both guys and girls. Like you have to build like an actual character. You can't just look good, you know? And then, I mean, there was another point that I made, but, you know, it's basically, you know, women should also be of quality and not just exist, just be a woman. But then I'm also kind of curious from your perspective, you know, as someone who's so in such high demand, right?
You're so
So what does a woman want from a man that's pursuing her?
Oh, that's a really, really good question.
To have a lot of money. Is that what?
No, you know what's funny? I feel like the last few people I've dated, I'm just, let me disclaimer, my standards are going to be different than someone else's standards, right? But I think it's, again, prioritization of what's important to you.
Right.
So like for me, this is so silly because all the thoughts of the things I have are coming to my mind, but so is my concern of people's judgment. So this is for me, and I just need to not care about what people think. But safety is really important to me. I have to feel safe. But it's because I have a lot of like trauma in my life, and I used to work in news. And so I think I view men in a way that's like, I'm more afraid. So like, there's people that I have seen like have had a successful career, established, handsome, all these things. But like if I sat on the sofa with them and like maybe that was like close to them on the sofa and I didn't feel safe in my spirit, they were out of my life. And that, again, I think everyone is different.
Yeah.
But so I dated somebody who was living at home with her mom, and it didn't, to someone else, they were like, that was a red flag.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, I saw potential, I saw drive, I saw good character, I saw safety, I saw kindness, I saw the way he treated the servers, I saw generosity. And so, but I think I'm starting to learn a balance though. I didn't have to throw away that I really want a strong work ethic. So I think as we date, we pick up the things that are important to us. So for someone to pursue me, my number, I mean, there's a lot of things, but something that's really high is, do I feel safe? Do I feel protected? Do I feel secure? Do I feel like this person would, I don't want to say lay down their life, but I was in a situation with somebody, it sounds crazy, but I was dropping them off and we were in Lansing and all of a sudden we heard a gunshot. This man said, duck. And was like, I'm going to get out of the car. I'm going to open your door and then I'm going to walk you to the house. Do not get out of the car door till I get to your side. But that created such a safety feeling that it did create a romantic interest for me. That's the truth. And I had to explore that later. And I was like, why did I find that so attractive? It was because that was a natural part of his character and his instinct.
Okay.
But if he would have reacted very afraid also, like not... I might have been like, you're a great person, but I can't view you as a romantic partner. So isn't that interesting? And maybe I don't even know how that makes people feel, because now I'm like, do men are like, oh, that's what you view me for? But I'm just being honest with me, and I don't know if that's a traumatic response. I don't know, but safety is so important to me. I need to feel safe, emotionally, physically, spiritually, like. But I think that has a lot to do with my trauma, and so that's something. But for pursuit, respect. Like, I think a lot of people respect the idea of, oh, you're pretty or you accomplish these things. I feel like a product.
Okay.
So I think sometimes people want to date me because it's a product. So I want to feel like my ideas are respected, my thoughts. What do I want to do? Like, not just, oh my goodness, you're amazing. Will you help me? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, oh my goodness, you're amazing. Will you help me do this? Will you help me do that? Because now I feel like a service. It's interesting. There's someone today who called me. I was super excited that he called. I think he's a very handsome man. I know he loves the Lord. But there was this situation where then by the end of the phone call, it was like I set up a meeting to help somebody that was close to them. And later they were like, hey, they called back and they were like, I want to pray with you or something. And I was like, hey, I just want to say something. Don't call me to try to get me to help with stuff. Like, I was really excited you called. I thought we were just going to talk. And they were like, but this is what was so cool. This is where we have to check our lens because of hurt. He was like, thank you for saying that. That actually wasn't the intention of the call. The intention of the call was something else. But it just so happened she was in the room and she walked in. And I was like, thanks for clarifying that. But even that red flag or indicator revealed to me, okay, it's really important to me I'm not viewed as a product. So it's self-awareness going, okay, if I want to be pursued by somebody who sees me, loves me, wants to protect me, and doesn't view me as a product. But that's why I feel bad for men, because you don't want men to feel like they're a product either.
Yeah. Well, in what way do you feel like women can view men as a product?
I have viewed men as I just want this is the truth. I've evolved, but I just want somebody that's gonna move the heavy boxes and listen to me when I talk. I don't need them for anything else. But what about what they want? What excites them? What are their dreams? And I have had to transition into I'm not just this prize. They're the prize too. So I have been a girl who has facilitated you adapt to me. And I don't want to be that way anymore. But I think the truth is that change perspective happened by seeing how my amazing friends adapted to their husbands, their selflessness.
Wow.
So seeing how successful marriages, so I hate to say this, if I continue viewing culture, I might fall into the category of I'm a pretty girl, I'm the prize. But because I've seen really beautiful marriages and friends, the way they love their husbands in the midst of their junk, it inspires me and it makes me want to be that kind of woman. It inspires me. I'm like, he was doing what? And you've been praying for 8 months, And they're through thick and thin. There's so many things behind the scenes with friends that are married or, who have kids, where I see the beauty of them as a wife that I'm I want to be that kind of wife. So I have to date like that. I have to date with I have a tendency to get so caught up in my career and my dreams that I'm I just need a ride or die person. Let's go. That I have to keep really close friends around that are married to remind myself marriage is actually sacrifice. It is laying your life down. It is pursuing when you don't really want to pursue. It is doing the hard stuff. And so even with maybe the last few romantic partners that I've dated, when things got hard, I was I'm not just going to give up on them. I am going to show up when I don't want to. They really hurt me. That really upset me. But is this worth throwing them away? Throwing the relationship away? I'm not sure yet. And my threshold of tolerance has gotten a lot higher. My threshold of grace has gotten higher. But now I'm at a place where I'm okay, but what's the boundary? Because now you don't want to be so graceful that you're desperate.
Right.
I do feel this pressure. Now I'm on a tangent. This pressure of musical chairs. I turn 30 next year. And I feel the pressure of or I turned 30 this year because it depends on when this episode gets dropped, but I turned 30 soon. And
30 is the new 20, so.
But like there's this pressure of musical chairs, like
Yeah.
like take an inventory of all the close guy friends in your life and like who could be the partner. Yeah.
And I there is a certain pressure for women who have this timeline, because men don't necessarily have like that same timeline. There is, for biological reasons and other things, there's like some truth to that. But also it's just about relationship maturity and like the type of relationship you want. Like you're building this great capacity, right? You're not taking superficial things, and you're not like you're just not taking anything, and you're learning about yourself, so that when you are in that position, you have so much more capacity, and you absolutely know that you want to be someone, and you know what it takes.
Yeah. But I did not know what it took. And I still probably don't know what it takes. I'm getting a better understanding of what it takes. And I didn't have those skills, and those skills have gotten developed through dating.
Exactly.
So that's where things get interesting in the Christian culture, where it's like, if you just date to marry, but then you're not equipped to actually be married.
Yeah.
Where dating actually helps you to become equipped and become selfless and become empathetic and become like work as a partnership instead of working as a one person.
Right.
Person. Yeah. One person. A solo, not a partnership. Oh, we got somewhere deep. I was going to ask a question and I lost it. So I'll let you keep asking questions.
Okay. So
did I answer the question you asked? Like,
you
what
did.
are some of the characteristics?
You did. It's
safety, and that's not for everybody.
Well, what's interesting, because I asked somebody this
What did they say?
just yesterday. It was basically fundamentally the same thing. I feel like it's like a very feminine, like women do. It's actually this book that I was reading. It was called basically it was like what women want men to know, and like all the things that are important to them. So one of the key things is safety. You know what I mean? Like, because like you said, they want to feel physically safe, emotionally safe. They want to feel acknowledged and valued. Women have a very keen sense of time, and they want to, and that's why they plan, anniversaries and like just different things. And because all these things meant something, all these things are like very special to them. And men don't necessarily have these, these timing things. We forget anniversary, birthdays, because it's just like any other day to us, where a woman was like, well, that was the time where like, we first met, and, it was like, 80.
I do not fit that, by the way. I forget birthdays. I forget days. That's not my gifting.
Okay. So question for you. In this modern era where women, can have these careers and have these lives and things like that, and really work to have like their own, at what point is it too much? Like at what point, does a woman need to be able to like pull back and be able to,
Be soft enough.
yeah, just get some of that feminine energy back to like be able to be with a person?
That's such a good question. And it's such a good question because I think it's still something I'm learning. I had a conversation with someone last night where I was like, I don't like that I want to be with someone. I don't like, I miss, and I said this, somewhere along my journey, I was that independent girl. I was like, I don't need anybody. It's just me, right? I don't need a man. I don't want a man either.
Oh.
And now I'm like, I really want somebody.
Right.
I want someone I can be soft and submit to, right? I want someone I can cry on their shoulders.
Right.
The fact that I admitted I want someone I feel safe with is a reflection of that feminine softness, right?
Yeah.
It's stepping into some gender roles of I want to feel protected.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the protector of the home.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so I think for us women, I think not gonna speak for everybody, but for me, I think my perception is, my experience for myself has been, I think when I was fighting this, like, not fitting into gender norms a little bit, let me be specific about gender norms, not fitting into a man leading position.
Okay.
So Lexi leading position, that actually was coming from a place of, I didn't trust a man enough to lead. And I had too much, I think it's trauma. It's like, I have been hurt so much, I won't even let you be close enough or be put in that position where I'm vulnerable. It's a lack of vulnerability. But I think when you start to establish trust, and I'm going to say the word faith. So faith that there is a person that is worth committing, that is safe, that will protect you, that has your back no matter what,
Right.
that is for you. They don't want to take from you. They also want to give back to you. And I think that's it. Then there is a softness that arises. And I think for us women that are super career oriented, that are driven, that can provide for themselves, that's something we have to become aware of. Who are we around that brings out that softness in us?
Yeah.
Who are we around that we can just cry? You're like, I don't even know why, I'm just crying in front of you. Like, and who are we around that we're like, it doesn't matter, you choose. Because that ability for myself, knowing that means it's actually, my decision making is communicating a thought pattern I believe about that person. So follow that. If I'm like, you make a decision, I trust you. The thought is, I trust you. That's why I'm letting you make the decision and lead. And so if I'm unable to do that, it's because it's a reflection of what I think about that person. The same way I said, if I'm close to someone on the sofa and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I don't feel safe.
Right.
That means there's something about this person I didn't like that they did or whatever that doesn't make me feel safe. So I think for us, when does, repeat the question one more time. I hope I answered it. I feel like I'm all over the place.
You did. Maybe.
So it was just basically like, you know, how do you know when to take back like some of that energy to allow yourself to be submissive?
And I think it's time. Time, consistency, trust. I'm telling you. But it's weird because certain people, you just trust them right away. Like I told you that example. That person's like, get down. Like, it established this level of trust where I was like, I feel safer around you. You're not gonna let anything happen to me. You know, like I just saw it in a reactive moment. You weren't gonna let anything happen to me. I trust you. But it's, I think, time, consistency in the small things. When someone says they're gonna do something and they honor it, those little moments create such a position of safety and trust. Yeah, it's like your character, it showcases character. So I think those walls come down with time, consistency. And I think if men lead with vulnerability, which is hard for men, but that's creating emotional safety. So, because it's like, hey, you're trusting me with some of your stuff. I'm trusting you with some of your stuff. Even as I'm saying this, I'm like, what if a manipulative person's watching this? But that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what if a manipulative man is like, great, I got all my tips. But I also think women, we have to trust our instincts too. So sometimes our instinct is roaring for a reason. I have found that for myself. But so I think those walls come down with time, consistency, trust, emotional vulnerability, safety, and honesty. So even when someone's like, honestly, that bothered me, it's weird. Something in us believes you now.
Yeah.
So conflict for me actually creates deeper intimacy. Because I believe intimacy is you see into me. So if there's something that's coming up that's a conflict, like, hey Lex, like they challenged me. I didn't like that you did that. And then I might react in a not healthy way and they're still kind. That's a good sign. Or I react in the right way and now we navigate through a whole conversation, or we both, right? We both chose to navigate through that well. And now you're like, I see into you more and you see into me more. Because if things are too perfect, as a strong woman who has experience dating and also who is like career driven, there's something on the inside of you that's like, this can't be this is too good to be true.
So it sounds like, so, and kind of this aspect of, this podcast, because it's very reflective. You mentioned in the last episode about being like very vulnerable, right? And almost it almost makes me think of like something Will Smith said is like, because he gets on like these red table talks with his wife on the show.
He just released a book, great. I haven't read it, but I saw the behind the scenes of how it was made.
And he talks about how like I'm paraphrasing, but he says like one of the greatest passions in life is the pursuit of like the truth, to like really understand like who you are and like to be truthful with yourself. So it sounds like to me that let me ask you this question first. Do you feel that you value being like honest like with yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think self-reflection and honesty, I'm surprised I haven't already mentioned that, is such a high value of myself and of others, and self-growth consistently. Okay.
So it sounds like you want somebody who you feel like you trust just like yourself. Like if you can trust somebody, if you feel, how do I describe it? Just a sense of that, like, you're honest with yourself, you do the self-work, you love to be honest with yourself, and if you can feel that same thing in that person and trust them like you trust yourself.
But that's the crazy thing. I've had people where I swear the way they speak, the way I'm like, I trust that they know themselves, but I don't trust them with me. But maybe it's because of, I don't know, the way they handle their parents, or I don't actually know. Because some things it is a feeling. And that's what I mean by like your instinct. I think us women have a really beautiful gift where that spirit, that intuition, that something in you will give you more knowledge than like, because I think that's a beautiful statement. What you said is a beautiful statement. Like I was like, yeah, I do want someone that's going to, but sometimes I actually know that people they'd handle things the way I'd handle things. But do I trust them with my heart? That's different, because they might handle hearts in a direct way, in an aggressive way. So I think for me, it's actually somebody that's strong and soft at the same time. And that's what the hard part is, right? Because it's like, I have to navigate through, is that realistic? Here's what I'm learning. It actually might be realistic. This is going to get very real, but I may have to throw away the Instagrammable looking couple. The perception of other people. Like, you should be with a tall blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But you're like, my deepest desires and my heart is really well cared for. And so those are the things I'm working through. Is it possible for me to have those parts of my heart and the handsome, tall, person that dances salsa? Or am I willing to forfeit the dancing salsa, the fun extrovert for the person that I can come home to?
Right.
And I know is going to care for my heart.
Yeah.
And those are the things in dating right now that we need to navigate through, because we have put too much of high value in the cute Instagrammable couple.
Right.
We rather commit to something that looks beautiful, that's going to give us that bomb ring. Or like, I've dated somebody where I had a great conversation with a close friend of mine, and a good guy friend of mine who called truth into me said, Lex, you totally could marry this person. This is somebody from years ago. So like, not many people wouldn't know, because we talked about marriage, because we date to marry in the Christian world. And he was like, you totally could marry him. He's going to be fill in the blank. If I give away the career, you'll know who it is. But do you really want to be with somebody that you live for a gift live for a gift 4 times a year? Because I said this, I was like, yo, we don't have depth. Like, he doesn't know my heart, but he gives really great gifts. And the family loves him, and the status. And I always said I wanted to marry this profession.
Right.
And he had this profession. And so if, let's say, it's a lawyer or a doctor or I don't know, whatever, a rapper, like, if you married for that profession, but are you okay with never seeing that person? Never. And that's what I mean by, like, I think I'm learning that the standard maybe needs to change for even my own self. Like, and I would actually argue that for men too. Like, if a man wants his heart to be well cared for, is it going to be the Instagram model?
More than likely not.
Attention.
More than likely not. You know, I think in both ways, like, we want, on both sides, we want a complete person. We want somebody who's going to be dynamic and also somebody that's going to be, like, safe. You know, there's guys we want, in an ideal case, like, we want the Instagram model, you know, who's also going to be able to cook for us if we need to, who's going to be able to cuddle us and hold us, who's, like, you know, sharp with the finances. Like, as dynamic as she is on Instagram, as dynamic as she is at home. And if she has kids, she's going to keep her body. And, you know, you have 4 kids and she'll still look like that. And it's like, yeah, right? But it's like, okay, but, like, most times, like, most people are, like, either one of those halves. Like, you might be, like, a good, like, home caretaker, but, like, you don't really care about how you dress. So you're just not, like, you know, but, and then you're the person who knows how to take great pictures and has all the great angles, has a nice body, but your character is, like, god awful. So, like, the best you can do is be like either a baby mama or a gold digger, and it's like.
And here's the thing, though, because I could say the same thing about men, but I think there is a merge. There is a, so for example, like, if you, my family, they're gorgeous women, capable women, can do a lot of stuff, but not the best cooks. I'm actually a decent cook. Or you gotta deal with the Latina, like, stuff. Like, my stepdad is Caucasian and my mom's Latina. So, like, he lies to us about the times of parties so that we're on time.
Right.
But that's something he knew going into the marriage, and he's very timely. Dave, you are very timely, and your whole family is very timely. But he's had to compromise for that, and it's just funny because it's like, it's still an annoyance to this day, but so he's found a way. So, like, that's a small thing, but it's like, so you sign up for the package. I think that's a good point.
You do, and I do feel like it would be very nice if we all as people learned how to be more like Renaissance people, like people who kind of know and can experience, like, all these different spectrums of, you know, how to work and behave, right? Like, you know, yes, you're attractive, you know, it'd also be great if you knew how to cook, how to do some, like, practical things, right? Like, if not just for yourself, you know, to also be able to add that component. You know, yes, you're a good home caretaker, but, like, why do you have a hard time being sexy? Like, you should know at least some of that. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be times, right? Like, if you're, like, you know, let's say you did it right. You're with a man, you're on your honeymoon.
But you need to give grace, because that's the thing. You're not going to find a girl to have all that. Or that those things develop over time.
They do. You know what I mean? And that's why I think we, both genders, we need to, like, just work on this Renaissance model to, like, understand, just be balanced, just to know how to do, you know, just a little bit of everything. You might be really proficient and really good at one thing, and you might really understand, like, I mean, obviously, like, great foundation for a long-term relationship. Like, if you have, like, good homemaker skills, yeah, like, if you're great at that, like, great, but then, like, you know,
I think that's good in theory.
Yeah, but like I said, like, not everybody.
I think it's good in theory, but this is a question. Do you think that you become more evolved, or maybe more of that Renaissance person, when you find the right person?
No. It happened before. I think it happened before.
I don't know if I agree with that.
You should. Well, it should happen before.
Well, I think as I've dated people, I have become more refined.
Okay.
But my hope, and this is maybe unrealistic, maybe naive, I'm just saying, is that when the right person comes into my life, maybe I'm a better fill in the blank.
Okay.
Never mind. I was about to go there. Like, how vulnerable. Like,
No,
I know I'm not a sexy person.
Yeah.
People think I'm cute, and I dance salsa really well. But, like, I'm very anxious about anything that's going to relate to sexuality one day.
I feel
Like
there's
I'm not going to be sexy.
There's probably a lot of men in your DMs that would disagree. But, you know, I feel that.
But I'm just being honest.
No, but
like, I'm a package when it comes to, like, being emotional and sensitive and tears and, like.
And I see, okay, so I get that. So it's a sense of, like, and I do know what you mean. Like, the circumstance will create the need for that, right?
Like, the circumstance will also create the rising up to the occasion. Like, I know women who were like, I hate cooking, but they're learning for their husband.
Yeah. And obviously there are going to be some things that you want to put more weight on before in a relationship than others. Like, no, like you don't want to learn how to be this like, you know, sexually proficient person and like you're really good at that, but you don't know how to have like any home skills, right? Like that's really, I mean, it's great in a short term because like, okay, like you're going to get the hookers thing, but like in the long term, it's going to be like really tough. If not for you and your partner.
There are going to be some people that disagree.
You know what I mean?
We'll
like,
see.
I'm just saying, like, it'd be tough. Like, why would you waste your time, like, being really
I don't know though. I feel like somebody can learn how to cook when they're dating. Okay, do you know that Megan Good and Devon Franklin? He talked about that. How he had these expectations that Megan's a beautiful woman, beautiful actress.
Yeah. No, and
She is so sexy. But there was this expectation that she was gonna like cook, and then she was like, "I'm filming in Cali and doing," you know what I mean?
And that makes sense. Like, I mean, that's your circumstance. Obviously, like, I mean, I live the bachelor. Like, I can cook. I couldn't cook great stuff.
You better be able to cook.
Great stuff. But like on a day to day, like for me, like I just don't. I'm not gonna make an extravagant move for myself. You know what I mean? And so, like, obviously, circumstance will change something. But here's the thing: I learned how to do it before, so I know how to do it before, right? So when you go in,
we need to wrap up this episode before we get into
the situation. Now you know a little something, right? And you can add to it. It's better to know a little something than to be like zero.
But some things you don't know until you get into it.
But we have so much life, like, you know what I mean? Like,
how do you know the checklist of what needs to be done?
In your household, like your parents, maybe you had parents to cook.
That's
maybe
true. We better hope that.
Like you have things around you to where you can get a little bit of. I'm not saying you need to be proficient.
I dated somebody who had never done their laundry before.
I learned how to do laundry.
But even that, there was grace. I was like, okay. Your parents were extra bougie.
I'm just saying, like,
let me help you.
So we can't help things that we haven't learned, right? But like, that's why I'm saying I feel that things moving forward, right? Just a little bit of experience.
You want everyone to have a more
balance, just holistic.
Okay. I see your theory.
Experience it all.
Approach. I don't know if it's realistic. I think you should consider that.
Okay, I'm just saying. I think it is. Like you get one.
Because then I'm gonna ask that the future hubbies cook food, know how to vacuum with triangles the way my mom did it.
It doesn't have to be the way your mom did it, but at least if you know how to, if you can clean up a few things with the vacuum, you're off to a good start. Because you might need to do that later.
Oh my goodness.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, closing it out, what advice would you give to women about commitment in a way that would be honoring to men?
I'd say just the number one thing is just don't be flaky. You know, if you're going to make a commitment, actually make a commitment. Just like men have to put in time and effort, women need to put in time and effort. It's not just a free game where you can just, I'm just a woman, so just come. Like, no, like, reciprocate.
All right, ladies and gents, commitment's important. Hopefully you got something great out of this episode. Deon, thanks for being here.
Yes.
We had a great talk. We got real comfortable.
Sure did. This couch is too comfy. I feel like I'm just sinking in it, like just.
We love you. Thanks for listening to the Relationship Reflections podcast. Until next time. Toodles.